This scent is from a set of 3 from the house of Annick Goutal, the late Annick Goutal, which also I think I've heard mentioned once on Fragrance Tube. This was when Carlos did his favorite scents by note video. This was a month or 2 back, and he did his favorite incense fragrances, and he included this. It wasn't a full-on review, it was just a list of, I think, 10 or 15 of his favorite fragrances. Favorite incense fragrances, that is. And this is one of the ones he included. He actually really enjoyed it. I have a slightly different take on it. It is Encens Flamboyant by Annick Goutal. Or if you want to anglicize it, Incense Flamboyant. Flamboyant incense. Like I said, this is released as a set of 3, which seems to be a really popular thing to do, release fragrances in lines of 3 with a common theme. And these 3 were sort of structured around, I guess, resins. To be specific, amber, myrrh, and incense. So maybe not resins specifically, since that wouldn't really fit, but sort of that Middle Eastern vibe. The other 2 were Ambre Fétiche, which I've heard mentioned a few times, and Myrrh Ardente. So the current nose behind most of the fragrances that come out of Annick Goutal is no longer Annick herself. Like I said, she is the former Annick Goutal. She passed away in, I think, 1999. But her daughter, Camille Goutal, is the current sort of creative director of the house. And in the case of this fragrance, and actually the other 2, she worked with another perfumer whose name I do not recognize, named Isabelle Doyen. And all 3 scents together, Encens Flamboyant, Ambre Fétiche, and Myrrh Ardente, make up the Les Orientalistes line. So the Orient, the Orientals. The top notes for Encens Flamboyant include incense, pink pepper, and red berries. At the middle, you have nutmeg, incense, cardamom, and sage. And in the base, you have balsam fir, incense, and mastic. Mastic, also, you might know it by another name called lentisque. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. But there's something about incense that washes over me, that always reminds me of the Vieille Église, like that old Gothic church smell. And Encens Flamboyant is really no exception. When you first spray it on, what I get on my skin is something highly balsamic, that is containing balsam. And it's also camphorous. It's got a bit of a borderline medicinal smell. There's also a bit of pine-like smokiness that could be the result of the mastic. Mastic is a resin that comes from a Mediterranean shrub, the smell of which sort of rides the line between cedar and olibanum, if you know what an olibanum smells like. Despite the note pyramid, on my skin, the berries are the most prominent at the base of the scent, not on the top. So, and the berries lend that sort of one tiny, very, very subtle touch of sweetness to the whole composition. And it's an extremely, extremely subtle sweetness. I mean, even less noticeable than like the red berry accord that you get in something like Tuscan leather. On the whole, Encens Flamboyant is extremely dry, extremely arid, and so if you're looking for a sweet or floral incense, this is certainly not what you would be after. As if the simplicity of the scent weren't itself a slight letdown. I mean, it is sort of just a peppery incense, maybe a little berry for sweetness. That's about it. I mean, there's not a lot going on. The sillage for me is another negative. On my skin, this wears almost like a skin scent, even from the very beginning, and has almost no ability to project. I smelled it at varying lengths from my nose, from the application point, and could never really detect it maybe more than 4 to 6 inches from where I sprayed it on my skin. Admittedly, the few times that I sampled this were in the winter, so if someone was looking for that ever elusive springtime or summertime incense scent, this might work in warmer weather. It might project further. And again, I have very peculiar skin in the fact that it eats up pretty much whatever I put on it, even if I moisturize it thoroughly and everything. It's still a problem. So if you have skin that is naturally moist and doesn't need moisturizer, maybe you'll get more projection out of this than I will. I don't know. But for being an EDP, and this is an EDP, I was really quite surprised at how close to the skin it wore for its entire life. At the end of the day, this sits really gloomy and sort of funereally close to my skin. I thought it would work really well in cold weather that we've been experiencing here somewhat in Central Texas, but not really. Unfortunately, even in the cold weather, there's not too much to be found that's flamboyant about this fragrance. But maybe in warmer weather, I'll give it another try. Encens Flamboyant by Annick Goutal. Bye, guys.